Hello and welcome to this week's Dream Deals. On tonight's show, we'll be going for a drive in a classic Lotus Elan. Plus, Richard Hammond will be showing you how to get your hands on an Italian legend. But first, it's time to find out what the future holds for Jaguar. To many, Jaguar epitomise everything good about the British car industry, but until the recent introduction of the S and X type models, they were still considered a niche manufacturer, and their appeal was somewhat limited. At the Frankfurt Motor Show, Jaguar unveiled a concept car that pointed to the continued expansion and future of the company, the R Coupe.
Well, we thought of a number of names for the coupe, and we decided we wanted something straightforward and simple. And we chose the R because our R branding is something we want to bring to the forefront of Jaguar. Our new R branding has new graphics now, so it's a chance to introduce new graphics for the R branding. And also, it emphasised the performance value of Jaguar. It's something else we want to bring forward. Jaguar have tended in recent years to be looked at purely as a luxury product. In actual fact, its real heritage is performance. So the R really epitomises that performance, and of course it relates to our racing heritage, which is where it comes from, of course, Formula One today.
By building the R Coupe, what does it reveal about Jaguar's future?
Well, there are quite a number of important issues with the concept car. The first one is it's a chance to experiment without actually committing yourself to a volume production or anything. And it gives the designers a chance to try things that are new and even sometimes make mistakes, you know, and display them into the public arena and get some feedback and get some feel to whether that design or the designs are right and people are going to like them or not. And also it's a chance to show off a little bit, you know, to just show off that we have a future that we're thinking very strongly about and it matters a lot to us. And it kind of prepares the designers themselves and our own management and the public to the way we're thinking for the future. We clearly wanted to design a car that wasn't preempting any particular product, and that's why we chose a four-seater coupe. We're not going to build this car. It's very important that we don't give the impression that we're going to build it. This really is just very much an experimentation design. And so we decided in the coupe, because we have no plans to do a four-seater coupe, not for the immediate future, and it doesn't run into line with any of the new products that we're doing. The next thing is that the coupe itself indicates performance. It's not a fully blown sports car, but it certainly has tendencies of a sports orientation. And that's very important to us because the performance side of Jaguar is something that we want to push further, as is where we've been in the past. And so the coupe represents that. Now, in terms of form, Jaguars historically have always been simple. That's not to say they're simplistic, there is a difference. And they're simple forms, but they're very well constructed. And that's very important to us. There's a sort of tendency to think that Jaguars are free form. They're not. They're actually very well constructed. They're almost very architectural. And then yes, you apply form to that architecture. And that can be in the form of shapes, or it can be in the form of the lines of the car. And it's important that these lines don't inhibit the movement of your eye. You run naturally from one end of the car to the other. So in these terms, that's what this car has. It has all these attributes of the values of the Jaguars that I remember and loved, but applied in a modern way.
Although Jaguar don't have any plans to build the R Coupe, what the concept has shown is where Jaguar are heading. While still holding true to its heritage of elegance and power, the Jaguars of the future will be more sporting and more beautiful than ever, perhaps even more desirable.
Well, I guess that's it then. What with that broken and the ashtrays being full, I think the old bus is about finished. Time for something new. Thing is, what if you're lucky enough to be thinking, yeah, my like Porsche is just too sensible for me now. I fancy something with a bit of Italian flair, like a Ferrari. But you still want to do the miles. Do that in a Ferrari and pretty soon you'll spoil it. But I've got a good idea. Now, Mark, this has set me thinking, right? Maserati. Last week I was driving the gorgeous new Spider, and they said that Maserati, kind of unlike a Ferrari, which is a toy car, can be used every day, a bit like a Porsche. Isn't it true? Can they?
Yeah, definitely. The car's designed to be an everyday car, but with true Italian flair and passion.
So you get that everyday usage, but you still got, because I mean, it's still the name Maserati, that carries a bit of clout.
Yeah, it's steeped in history.
Really? And does that still draw people to it, just the name?
Absolutely, yeah. And coupled now with the Ferrari input, the cars are just fantastic. They're a sensational car to drive. The coupe has filled a real market gap. You've got 2 usable back seats. The car's a 370 brake horsepower car. It's a real exciting car to drive.
You could use it every day.
And you can use it day to day.
Now, I'm after a second-hand buy.
Sure.
Now, there are second-hand cars, and you come to a place like this surrounded by exotica and start talking second-hand. They are on the market, though. I mean, it's been out since, what, 99?
Yes,
so they're around. Kind of money are we looking at?
You're going to pick an early car up from mid-30s through to new. Manuals are starting around the 60,950 bracket. The autocar starts at 62,950. Typical used car like this one we stood next to, for example, which is a 2000X manual car, you're going to pay probably just shy of £50,000 for that car. And
people are very happy to do that. I mean, there aren't many in the country anyway, but those that are selling quite nicely.
Oh yeah, no, we have no problem at all with good quality used second-hand cars.
Well, as always on the programme, there's no good just standing here talking about it. We've got to have a drive of the thing. What's it going to be like to drive as an experience? Is it anything like a Ferrari?
It's different to a Ferrari in the way that you do have the feel you can use it day to day. But it's a true sense of occasion every time you get in the car. So it's the kind of car that after you've owned it a week, you're not going to be bored. You're going to want to get in the car. You're going to want to go to the shop for your wife, pick up the newspaper, do whatever. Just the experience of getting back in that car and behind the wheel. It has a tremendous presence on the road. Brilliant car to drive. You'll enjoy it. Let's go and try it.
Now, who's buying, Mark? Because I've got this vision of a Maserati customer being, for a start, quite a lot older than, say, Porsche customers. Obviously, they've got a few quid because they're cheap.
Yeah.
And maybe fairly discreet. Am I a million miles away there?
Not a million miles away, but we do get a good crossbreed of customers. We get quite young, affluent guys, you know, perhaps come from the internet, the computer-based industries.
When you say young, what sort of age? Like
from sort of 25 bracket, yeah.
But they can't remember Maserati.
Yeah, but perhaps, you know, bear in mind they have got a fantastic history. You know, I remember my father talking about Maseratis when I was a child. The guys that are perhaps accountants, they're in that perhaps sort of industry, they open the Sunday Times, they see a Maserati ad, they come into a dealership like ours, they see it parked with Ferraris, and they're like, this is a product I should be looking at. So yeah, we do get the young guys. At the same time, we get the guys who are, you know, high-level businessmen looking to use them as a day-to-day company car. We get the guys who remember Maserati of the past. The kids have perhaps grown up. They want a good, fun sports car, but they don't want to go perhaps as wild as a Ferrari 550. The car does have a good crossbreed of customer.
Here's where I can really scare you then, or where maybe you can really scare us. It's a supercar, right? Even if you can get into one second-hand for the kind of money of an executive saloon, it is a supercar.
Sure.
So, supercar servicing, presumably.
Well, actually,
frightening.
That issue isn't a big issue. The servicing is actually very, very reasonable. A new Maserati at the moment, or really from date of registration, come with a 3-year fixed cost servicing plan. The car has a 12,000 mile service interval, or an annual service, and a service will cost you £600 including VAT.
Crikey.
So you know exactly where you stand from day one.
Oh, right.
Once
I
the
thought
car
there might be a bit of a fright waiting for you.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, it's again, Maserati were mindful of the fact that they want people to go out and use these cars as a day-to-day car. They don't want people to be frightened away by huge, massive service bills.
One real thing in its favour, some cars, and we are in supercar territory, it's a Maserati for crying out loud, are a bit intimidating when you get in to drive away, and you do feel a bit, particularly if there's the guy who owns it sitting next to you. But this really isn't intimidating, is it? You actually can just jump in this and tool around in it quite happily without feeling the need to use all that power or feeling threatened by it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, a lot of customers do get in the car. They do feel a little intimidated when they first get behind the wheel, but within minutes, you can feel at home in this car.
And it does have that neat trick that all good sports cars have, which it shrinks around. You don't feel that it's going off into the horizon on every corner. If you're in the position, lucky you, of looking to buy one of these second-hand, do you have to be very careful about mileage? They're very mileage sensitive.
Obviously, a car will be slightly mileage sensitive. We do have one or two customers who do the sort of 20 to 30,000 miles a year bracket, but I must admit that's not the norm. Most of our customers are perhaps in the 10 to 15,000 mile a year
Which
bracket.
is fair enough. I mean, that could be every day for some
But
people.
that is, for a lot of those guys,
Not
that is
for
everyday
me,
driving.
some people. So Mark, what we're saying is, you get kind of Ferrari Exotica and sheer fanciness, but then you've got 4 seats, so it's quite practical. These are excuses for the bank money. And you can pretty much use the thing every day as you might a 911. Do you know, I'm tempted. I'm really tempted. So tempted, in fact, that I'm going to keep my old bus because I can't actually afford to change it right now. Still, anyone know where I can get a cheap Porsche 911 headlamp? Or somewhere.
Well, that's it for part 1, but join us after the break when we'll be going for a drive in the original Lotus Elan.
What's the best-selling car of all time? Well, that, as they say, depends on who you believe. Toyota say it's their Corolla. Ford say it's their half-ton pickup. But both those vehicles have changed fundamentally in their lifetimes. But the two great icons of the multi-million sellers are, of course, the Model T Ford and the Volkswagen Beetle. The Model T, of course, is long gone, but incredibly, the Beetle remains in production in Mexico, half a century on. And this, of course, is the spiritual successor to old Beetle, the new Beetle. Famously launched as just a design concept at a Detroit motor show, it went into production through popular demand. Volkswagen initially thought that would only last 5 years, but now it's been extended to a 7-year production cycle. And this is the latest model in the new Beetle story. V5 engine, 170 brake horsepower. Could it be a poor man's Porsche? Beetle V5 feels very similar to Golf V5 to drive, hardly surprising since they share the same chassis. But you can't get the four-wheel drive synchro version of that chassis in Beetle form. You can only get it in the Golf and the Bora equivalents. Volkswagen recently upped the power output of the V5 engine to 170 brake horsepower. That's to delineate it from the 1.8 turbo petrol engine that delivers just 150 brake. But it doesn't feel like 170 brake horsepower under your foot. It's a very smooth and sophisticated power unit, but it doesn't exactly rip the tarmac apart when you open it up. But despite the power output, economy's not bad. 31 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle. 17-inch alloy wheels are part of the package, so there's a lot of rubber on the road, and that means the grip and handling are totally predictable. But make no mistake, you really can throw this Beetle around. The shape's pretty familiar by now on the roads, everybody's seen a Beetle, but for how much longer will the retro look remain popular? You'll undoubtedly buy one of these cars because the cheeky shape appeals, and you love the character and the flair of it. But do you want it as an executive saloon? This particular test car is fitted with leather upholstery, a sunroof, and what they call winter and weather packs. And all that brings the price up to £19,000 on the road. That's about the same as a V5 Passat, and you get a lot more car there for your money. But Volkswagen make no secret of the fact that this is going to be the top of the range car, and only 5% of new Beetle owners are going to choose the V5. What it does is to give Beetle a new dimension, and especially make it an enjoyable, powerful motorway cruiser. Volkswagen symbol so much more than just 2 letters, and you simply cannot underestimate the degree of affection and appeal that the Beetle exerts on people of all generations. And new Beetle has that same personality in spades, especially when so many cars today look and feel the same. But somehow I just can't help being a little bit disappointed by this V5. On paper it looks marvellous, 170 brake horsepower, but it fails to deliver the excitement that the specification promises. At £17,000 you just have to accept too many compromises in loss of rear seat room and luggage capacity, and there's just too much bare painted metal for an executive express. I think the appeal of new Beetle is all about style and image, and on balance, I'd prefer to pay just over £12,000 and have a fun car.
Throughout the history of the car, perhaps the most desirable and sought after of all has been the Roadster. Satisfying people's longing for freedom and offering a wind-in-your-hair experience, they epitomise the sheer joy of driving. But unlike many of today's Roadsters, one car that has managed to maintain its mystique throughout its life is the Lotus Elan. But even now, why do people want an Elan?
So why did I buy an Elan? Well, I had 2 Lotuses before this one, and I had to sell them, you know, buying houses, that kind of thing. And I can't tell you what a gap that left in my life at the time. And just had an overwhelming desire to replace it with another one. You know? Just it really gets to you, and so as soon as I could afford it again, I bought this car.
So if you fancied trading in your modern Euro box for a classic Elan, how much is it going to set you back?
When I bought this car, it was in pieces. It had been used for 4 years by its first owner, and then it was damaged. And when I bought it, it had been repaired but not finished. So it was very cheap. I paid about £2,000 for it, and I probably spent another £2,000, you know, finishing it off. And that was mid-80s, back in the mid-80s. By today's standards, probably, I don't know, 15, 16,000, maybe 20,000, I really don't know.
What about the car's reliability?
If something does go wrong with one of these, there's not that much that is going to cost you a lot of money. The only real serious thing is engine problems, and I haven't had any major engine problems. But if you maintain the car and you check it out and you try and anticipate things before they actually go wrong, then you can avoid most of those problems. And a lot of the unreliability things associated with Lotuses and other cars of this type in the past have been due to people not understanding them properly. If you know what you're doing, you can avoid most of the problems.
Despite the Elan's undoubted talents, has Neil ever considered changing his car?
I have actually considered changing this car for a Lotus Elise. I think it's taken them all this time to build a car that is the same kind of vehicle, the same kind of experience as the Elan was. And that was the only car that I would change for this.
In a world where cars are becoming more and more alike, it's easy to see why cars such as the Elan are judged to be classics. Offering bags of fun and an uncompromising driving experience, the Elan, unlike many of today's cars, is sure to be just as sought after in another 30 years.